Morning, everyone. Today is it's Monday, it's the 4th of September, so it's the beginning of a new month. And I wish all of you a great trading month ahead, and I hope you had a good month in August. So it's another weekly market analysis. My name is Pedro, I'm Senior Market Analyst at Alphachain, and we're going to look ahead to see what happened last week and what are you expecting for this week, and how are you expecting the market to react to all of that. So last week, as you can see in here, the monitor, it was quite busy. We had labor data finalizing with the non-farm payroll on Friday, on the 1st of September. Before that, we had other more labor market data being announced. We also had GDP being announced as well, Q2 GDP, and also the Core PCE being also announced. So starting with the labor data, right? So job openings come out worse than expected at 8.83 million. Last month it was 9.17. It was expected 9.49. Not mistaken, basically the lowest number before June 2020-21, right? But nevertheless, at this point, the graph, or the difference between the job openings or the people that lose a job, there's maybe still 1.5. The ratio is still kind of around 1.5, which basically mentions that for any person that loses a job, there's kind of 1.5 jobs available for you, of course, depending on the sector that you are looking for. It may vary, but it's still maybe easier to get a job at this point in the US, and that ratio most likely is going to continue to decline in the next few months as we see the unemployment increasing in here. Looking ahead, the non-farm employment change, it was at 177. It was much worse than it was the previous month. It's slightly lower than expected, and then finalizing with non-farm payroll at 187, slightly better than expected. And one point to pay attention to when you were just literally discussing about it is to pay attention to these revised numbers that has been occurring on a monthly basis for quite a while. As you can see, every month the number is actually revised. So whatever number we have straight away, in this case, this month it was 187, most likely it's going to be revised again when the next non-farm payroll number comes out. And this being a pattern that we have seen, and usually it's revised lower than expected. So it was always the first number, it's always a little bit higher than the real number ends up being. And that can create fake information into the market, right? Because the market then the participants are trading the number as it comes out, and then they may not pay as much attention to the revised number 1 month afterwards, because of course the main concern is already what's going to be the number, for example, now in October, and they don't really care about revised number back in September. However, we do need to pay attention to that, because in the bigger picture, if that's what you would like to start making proper analysis, we need reliable data to use. Therefore, we do need to have that info in there. So that's something to keep an eye on. Aside from that, we have the average ROE earnings at 0.2, slightly lower than basically half of the previous month, and slightly lower than expected. That's good to see kind of the average ROE earnings getting lower, maybe helping a little bit more the inflation not to increase. It's another concern from the central bankers, is looking at this average ROE earning in here, and they're expecting it to continue to decrease slightly. So with that being said, at this point we have the unemployment at 3.8%, higher than it was expected. It was 3.5, and if not mistaken, one of the last FOMC meetings, when the Fed Chair Powell made those predictions, it was to look at the unemployment to be by the end of the year at around 4.1%. 4.1, 4.2%. So there's a little bit more room to the upside in this unemployment. So it's expecting these numbers to increase as we progress into the close to the Q4 and the end of the year. So that was something that it happened, and something that we're going to carry on looking at, right? Because the next Fed meeting is going to be on the 20th of September. At this point, as you can see, the expectation is to stay unchanged, basically 92% of that. And the information that we had from the previous meeting that was in July, end of July, it was that the Fed wanted to see more information, like August and September's data, to then eventually make a decision in here. We did have the Jackson Hole conference, where Pedro mentioned that it was expected to continue to hikes to stay as high as for longer. So at this point, the conversation is not if there's actually going to be another hike with question mark in there, but the probability is quite low. It's actually when are we expecting the first rate cut to occur, and that's at this point, if not mistaken, all the way to I don't know, May, June, something like that. At this point, it's basically May where the market is expecting the first one. So many meetings from now. At this point, aside from that, as I mentioned, we also had the preliminary GDP of the second quarter. So initially, the advanced GDP, it was at 2.4%. At this point, at 2.1%, and then they're going to have the final GDP being announced. That's most likely for the end of the month. When you have the next one. So let's see, but so far so good at 2.1% at this point. The second quarter, we also had manufacturing PMI being announced in China. Actually, it was slightly better than expecting, getting closer to that 50 mark, but in the rest of the countries in the Eurozone, in the UK and in the US, still below 50, but slightly better than expected. In the US, for example, at 47.6, in the UK at around 43. Again, it kind of stopped a little bit. This downtrend that we've seen, but it's still quite low in the Eurozone as well at 43.5, with Germany still quite low, even below 40. Like, that's still a concern with the manufacturing PMI. We're going to have the services PMI this week, if not mistaken, on Wednesday. Indeed, it's one of the most important data to look at actually this week ahead. And then we also had the Core PCE, basically the inflation data point that the Fed pays more attention to, 0.2% on a monthly basis, if not mistaken, at 4.2% on a year-to-year basis, right? So steady. It was the same as the previous month in this case. And that's a lot of the information that we had last week. Just looking at Australia as well, because we had CPI, which was lower than expected at 4.9%. It was 5.4 the previous month, expecting 5.2, and it came out at 4.9%. This is the first time for a while that is below 5% the CPI in Australia. And they're going to have tomorrow overnight, we're going to have Reserve Bank of Australia announcing another interest rate decision, which is expected to stay and to remain the same as 4.1%, especially with the CPI being reducing, as the Reserve Bank of Australia wants to. Looking ahead for this week, we started with bank holiday and the US and Canada with Labor Day. So expecting maybe a little bit more of a quieter day today in the markets, and then we're going to carry on. So we're going to have exactly those services PMI tomorrow, and then on Wednesday, it's going to be in the US. Yeah, that's basically the only real data point that you're going to have in here. We have two central bankers with the interest rate decision, Australia and Canada, expecting to stay the same. So rates to be unchanged, right? And again, as I mentioned before, the conversation now, maybe it will be for how long are you going to have these rates at this so high, and when should be looking for a rate cut, and which central banker is going to be the first one to do so. So let's see what's going to happen in that regard. But yes, expecting some a quieter week comparing with the last week in terms of data being announced in here. So what have we seen from the market? A little bit of volatility on the dollar, basically since the beginning of the week, and then we had a correction again to the upside. In particular, helped with the Friday's move. We're testing this size now, right? So what are we looking for? Are we looking for the dollar to continue to move to the upside, or is this some kind of beginning of a reversal in here? Last week lows that kind of broke that low in there, may have broken a little bit into some level of space that may start opening the door a little bit to move to the downside. Question mark is it going to happen from here, or are we going to expect a little bit more eventually room to the upside before eventually having the final turn? That's a little bit of the question mark in here. This for me is kind of a good information that price may wants to go lower in the future. Question mark is if it's going to be from now, or by any chance we're going to target this size first before aiming to the downside. So that's something to keep an eye on the dollar. That's bigger picture. In the lower time frame, yes, maybe this morning there was already a good opportunity to look for a sell in here with next level of structure somewhere in here. Even these lows, they are still good. This level didn't really react precisely from that level in there. So let's see what's going to happen from here. But yeah, we can maybe separate it between like this, or then we can have the other bigger rectangle in there. And yes, after we break that level, open space to go to the other extreme, just like we have been covering that topic. So that's a little bit of the question mark on the dollar. A little bit of a range this week, or going to be kind of a continuation to the upside, and without so much data being released, maybe a little bit of a range could be expected. In terms of the indices and looking at the S&P and then Nasdaq and then the Dow as well, so we had the correction, like basically since the middle of July, we had that move to downside all the way until basically end of August. We feel the zone that we're looking for, and then we start moving to the upside. Now we are getting again closer to this structure, looking for price to go away and to break above kind of this level, and let's see how it's going to react from these highs. That's going to be the question mark, how price is going to react from those highs. In terms of the S&P, price reach one of the targets that we're looking for, kind of to retest a little bit of this high from August last year, all the way to react from these lows. We did respect the lows, so that opens a little bit more maybe room to the upside a little bit. Let's see if price respects this level, or eventually if it even takes that one and goes a little bit more to the upside. Nevertheless, I think there's maybe still something in here that you can look for, some kind of reaction in here on the S&P. We had that small gap in there created when there was that rate cut from the AAA to AA. So let's see. For now, maybe a little bit of a continuation. This level in here, in particular, these walls can be interesting to hold price to the upside or not. So yeah, it's a little bit more of what we are looking at on the indices. Okay, so let's see how price is going to react eventually when it gets there, how it's going to react from this highs, and if there's an opportunity to maybe look for another continuation to the downside. Nasdaq, bit more of the same. Again, it never really got really close to that high from August. The range is a bit different. We did respect this upper trend line that you have from the beginning of the year. It was touched already back in March and now kind of retested 2 times during these last 2 weeks. And you may have or go all the way through to the next to the highs. Okay, maybe first level is somewhere in there, but there's maybe even the chance of faking out slightly this size, getting into this level, and then maybe moving a little bit to the downside. We'll see. This level of structure now kind of a little bit important after the break of this high. So this level may still hold price and continue to go higher. If eventually we do have that break of structure in there, that may open the door to go down. Then maybe price can start creating something to navigate and push price a little bit more down to the downside. So let's see how price is going to navigate from these levels, something that you're going to keep an eye on as well on the Nasdaq. in case we do have a break of a high, price wants to go a little bit higher, price at this point is reacting from here. Yes, there's maybe still something closer to this level that price can still be, or can still use. So even if price takes this highs, there's maybe something in there that price can take again. But I'm still looking for price maybe to even respect this level, maybe going just above this this level. So you have a few zones that you are looking for in here. So let's see how price is going to navigate and move in this particular case. Then you have Dow, really good move to the downside, kind of to reach one of the targets that you're looking for as well. Kind of we have been bearish for quite a while, and there you go. How to move there. This is a good reaction. This event here, good decision point in there. Price broke to, created enough liquidity with these lows. So everything in here was actually quite interesting to look for. So let's see now how price eventually is going to react from here. It's going to respect a little bit more this level, kind of put down again, or kind of navigate and go a little bit more towards something in here. So that's a little bit of what we're going to have. Are you going to create kind of a range and kind of navigate now in between this level for the time being? Yes or no? That's a little bit of what you may be expecting in here, especially with the lack of data being released this week. Then even look at the DAX as well. DAX went all the way, retested the low, and meanwhile, kind of it's all the way already back to these highs in here as well. So that's a little bit of what we have. So let's see what kind of behavior we're going to have in here at this level. Price may go a little bit there. First, we need kind of these highs to be broken as well. So that's a little bit of the indices. Again, we had that correction. Initially, we had the move to downside all the way since middle of July. We respected good levels at the lows, and then you start moving to the upside again. So let's see how price now is going to react in that at around that structure. Euro index, this is what we have. Again, this high still holds in there, and price may continue to move a little bit more to the downside with respect to that level. We just took these lows, so this kind of opens a little bit more the room to the downside, maybe from here. So we may have that to happen, if not even a little bit more room to the downside in here. Price at this point looks like it's respecting quite nicely this level at around 104, 1046. So that's what you have at this point. We did manage to break this low, so eventually we may continue to move to the downside, maybe after some kind of correction or retracement in here on the euro index. And then you have the yen, right? And the yen index continues to move slightly lower. It tries to attempt to move to the upside unsuccessfully at this point, because it finds some kind of resistance straight away at this particular case. So that's a little bit of what we have. Again, the pressure is still there for the Bank of Japan to eventually do something. It's going to be, I think, some wage data this week. So to see as well if the inflation continues to increase in there or not. And as the yen continues to devalue and the dollar yen continues to increase, that's going to continue to create more pressure on the Bank of Japan eventually to do something about it and to intervene. So that's something to keep an eye on in this particular case on the yen index. This price continues to move down. There's going to be some kind of pressure in here. The type of price that you are starting to have in here, these already could break over high, but price kind of retested straight away in there. Price literally just respected the base of this level, but it starts to compress a little bit, and eventually we may have the turn that may lead to a bigger move in here. So that's something to follow as well in here. So that's a little bit of the indices. Looking now at the individual currency pairs, and you look at the euro continue to move to the downside, and there's maybe a little bit more room to go maybe towards that level. Meanwhile, kind of broke slightly this high in here, so we start this a clear compression in here. Should you expect new lows in there? Maybe can aim a little bit more towards in here this is kind of just a continuation, even maybe eventually going below this low. But let's see. Interesting this compression, the attempt to go higher, but to get rejected straight away. So we take these lows and then let's see what's going to happen in here. Again, in alignment with what the dollar index is doing. I think there's going to be also some news also in regards to the Eurozone this week that maybe I haven't really mentioned. So it's keeping an eye on it as well. The Eurozone. Okay, so this is the euro again. Nothing really has changed. Continuation to the downside, with maybe target a little bit more to the downside in this case. Pound again continues also its move to the downside, even slightly managed to break that low, kind of reacting from this structuring here. Again, as long as kind of this range kind of keeps holding, we may continue to move down, and you may even target a little bit more closer to that level. So let's see exactly what's going to happen in here. It's kind of a bearish move, but in a really strong range. It's not with the momentum. It's a lot of indecision in this particular case. Yeah, maybe waiting until to see what may happen in the next Bank of England interest rate decision, for example, and the next central bank's decisions, which may most likely going to start happening at the end of the month, around the 20th of September. Meanwhile, it's a lot of indecision. Data comes out, price reacts to the upside, price reacts to the downside. So let's see what may happen in here, and if you create any kind of momentum in there. Looking at Euro Pound as well, kind of a little bit more of the same, kind of a little bit of a move to the downside, correction, kind of can see our price is kind of moving down, breaking new lows, but still in a really strong range in here, which may be a little bit more room to the downside to be expected in here. But let's see exactly how price may eventually get to that phase. This is slightly move upwards, to be honest, in there. So yeah, may do something like this. Australia dollar as well kind of reacted. It went all the way there to the downside, reacting from this level from almost 1 year ago, back in September, November. Yep, compression to the downside as well. There's maybe a little bit more room to the downside before maybe aiming to look for a bigger move, if not even much lower than that. So we have been bearish on the Aussie, a little bit of a correction. Maybe you can have new lows before maybe moving or correcting a little bit to the upside. So that's just something to keep an eye on. Again, interest rate decision tomorrow. So let's see exactly what may happen in there. And then the yen, in this particular case, dollar yen. Like dollar yen went all the way already to 147.4 basically. We had a really good attempt in here to the downside with the NFP. That actually may be an engulf to the downside, may start opening the doors to go a little bit lower. Reaction from that zone, go a little bit higher still, but let's see how price is going to react around this levels. Start having some structure here that may be enough liquidity, may have already kind of a break of a low, and now fake out in there. Now we have another break of a low in there, so we start having some breaks of a low, starting to show indication that price may be close to a potential turn to the downside. I'm starting to enjoy this type of price action that I can see in here, and then eventually we can maybe aim towards something like this. Of course, maybe there's something in here first that you can look for. It's question mark of if price is already reacting from a good level in here, or price by any chance wants to go a little bit higher. And if there's anything in here as well that maybe you can push eventually for something like this. So this the dollar yen starts to be quite interesting in here in terms of the bigger picture, what's going on for the last 2 weeks, 2-3 weeks. It's good PI, good price action that you can see in here, and that maybe eventually to move to the downside in there. Quite similar as well on this euro yen. Euro yen just continues to react from something in there back in 2008. Again, it's kind of a monthly, weekly level that you are looking at in here, but you start having also some breaks of the lows and fake out in there. So that's interesting. In this case, this will actually respect that level. We start having enough liquidity. So we call it kind of a zone 3 of a move, kind of a compression. Even if you break in your high, maybe you can have a straight away correction. And there's maybe still something in here that could hold price and push price to the downside. So yep, I start to enjoy this to like this type of approach that you're having here, and maybe get closer to potential big reversal on this yen pairs. Again, pound yen, quite similar. Again, there's maybe something in there that price can still use. I would actually prefer to see a new low being created before the final move there. But let's see. Again, looking left, where is price going to? We have been mentioning that we are looking for price to get closer and closer to the upside. We finally took these highs. There's maybe something a little bit more in there that price could go to before the final turn. So it's another one to keep an eye on in regards to the yen pairs. Dollar CAD has been moving to the upside. A lot of compression in here. Again, another interest rate decision on Wednesday. So let's see exactly what can happen in here. We got closer to this target. So all the way we've been bullish basically since I had basically this break of high. I've been looking for that bullish move, and price now reached this target in here. It's going to respect these highs and move to the downside. You kind of had a little bit of a break of these lows. Maybe that's a good clue. We do have a double top in there, so we may create some kind of structure that eventually could lead price to move to the downside again. Question mark is going to be respecting these highs, or going to go a little bit above that before moving down. So that's just something to keep an eye on dollar CAD. In here, dollar franc Swiss, again, nothing really changed. A lot of compression, good break to the downside in here, and price is still kind of respecting that level. But let's see if we do have any kind of move down eventually towards there. It's been in this kind of range. Again, move to the upside, but in a range for quite a while. And then gold, good correction again. After we took and broke above this trend line, simple target, the completion of the trend line. And that's basically what price did all the way to the next supply that was just above this compression move that we had. It's just a simple trade. You could have followed price respecting these levels. As the moment it's broken, then you can start aiming for a long. Right, somewhere in here could have been a good attempt, or even after we break again these highs, we could have looked for it again. Basically, this is a zone 2 type of a move in there and reach the target. And now we are kind of correcting a little bit. So let's see exactly what may happen in here. We may have that bigger picture, the smaller one in here. So let's see if there's going to be some kind of correction here before price continue to go to the upside, or is there going to be any deeper retracement closer to that level or not on gold, right? But again, identifying this type of setups, this is one of the easiest and cleanest setups and trades that you can aim for. And then we have oil that has been moving to the upside, good correction. Like after that move to the downside, we had broken that high first, right? So paying attention, this was a break to the upside in here, indicating that price wanted to go up in the future. However, before that, it actually corrected a little bit. It retested this 77 mark, and now it's at 85. So what's next for oil? Are we looking for 90s perhaps? And something that we need to start asking ourselves is what's going to be the influence of seeing this energy and oil, maybe bringing the energy costs higher again, and what impact that's going to have in inflation, and how are the central bankers going to interpret this information, and this maybe increase of the cost of the energy prices in here. Like there's maybe expectation from Russia to announce again to continue to be with this reduction around 300k barrels per day. Saudi Arabia as well may also extend that reduction So let's see. That's going to continue to bring this one to the upside. China has been creating some stimulus into the economy, trying to bring that up. And if that happens, most likely it's going to help the price of oil also to increase. So let's see for a long and until where are expecting this. Is the bigger picture going towards the $100 mark, or where are they going to be looking for? That's kind of something to keep an eye on. Really strong momentum for the last basically 2 weeks on oil. In here, looking left, maybe a little bit of a correction there, and then maybe going a little bit even higher. That's already kind of on the $90 mark in there. So that's something to keep an eye on in terms of the commodities as well, and how they can affect also the future CPI data that's going to be announced in there. And then to finalize, looking at a little bit of crypto, looking at Bitcoin. Like since last time we spoke, basically it filled this range that we're looking for, all the way close to 25. Like that's kind of what we're looking for. Just one thing that never really happened was price to fake out this highs and react kind of from there before making that move to the downside. So that never happened. Price managed to respect this level, but since you start kind of managing to break these lows, that's kind of the target that we were looking for. So at this point, that's kind of where we are. Price reach this target at this 25. Are you going to break it? Kind of that's the question mark. Already have 1, 2, kind of 3 touches, proper touches in there. We had this attempt to go higher in here last week or so, but we had again another big sell-off happening straight after that. So let's see, is Bitcoin going to break the lows and start aiming towards maybe this 23,000? Yes or no, or are actually these lows going to hold and eventually push price to the upside? So that's something to keep an eye on. You can even break this low and then kind of retest again, kind of continue to move down. That could be something to look for. So let's see what's going to happen there. Ethereum, a bit more of the same. Kind of took actually out these lows, reacting a little bit from the structure. Can there still be more room to downside? Yes, it can. This was maybe a good one to look for some kind of reaction. Yep, but price can actually still going a little bit higher now and there, but there's still something in here as well that now price can use in there. So that's a little bit of what we have on crypto. So when kind of breaking this level in here, it may open a little bit more space to the downside. So that's something to keep an eye on. Crypto total market, similar to BTC, we have kind of this range, kind of it reached kind of that level in here. And as long as it holds, maybe it can look higher. If it kind of break it, then you can start aiming even lower in here. Like this, basically, won't even kind of working as a good level of support at this point. So that's a little bit of what we have. So let's see what kind of catalyst is going to affect Bitcoin or crypto space in the next couple of days, or the remaining of this week. Yeah, so to conclude, the indices are going to test the highs, and after that, what's going to happen? Dollar is going to continue to move higher and create new highs as well, or not. Commodities, gold and oil, for example, is it going to continue to the rally that have been during these last couple of weeks as well? So that's a little bit of what we are looking for in terms of the news. Reserve Bank of Australia and Bank of Canada looking to remain and change the interest rates, and what's going to be the topic of the conversation in terms of during those press conferences is going to be to expecting some rate cuts in the next few months, or just carry on, still concerned with inflation, and maybe the message is still going to be we may even hike more instead of just looking for rate cuts. So that's something to keep an eye on. So with that being said, again, wish everyone a great September, and I'll speak to you again in next week. Thank you. Bye bye.